Okay, so now that you've gone through the process of comping your vocal and you have your official lead vocal take right here, now what you want to do is go in and eliminate any distractions. Now, as you can see here, I've already gone through this process on this vocal by all these cuts, right? You can see that I've done this. Now, it used to look like this, right? When I pulled this line down and it would kind of run into that, you'd have all this space in between. Let me solo this so you can hear.
Oh no, there's a wound.
So, as time consuming as this can be, remember, once again, this is the lead vocal. You're not doing this on every single track in the mix, but the lead vocal is the most important part. So you don't want to have all this background noise, all these spaces where you're allowing extra stuff to come through the mix.
Oh no, no.
So this is what you want to do. So the first thing is go ahead and just slice up this track and add in fade ins and fade outs. So here,
There's a page I ripped out, all the words she wrote down, they're gone now.
so as soon as I get done with that exhaled breath, no, right? Then I just fade it out. Making sure that I don't cut off that breath at the end because that adds some nice texture. Right, so if you go over here and you do too much, that doesn't sound as good. You want that breath texture. So it takes detailed focus to make sure that you're keeping the textures and the qualities that you want to keep, but you're still cutting away this unneeded space in between. So then you come over here again, right, and you have a fade in right as the next line starts. So what you're looking for in this process when you're looking to eliminate distractions is anything like lip smacks, right? Anything like just nuances, maybe wonky breaths. If you have a breath that sounds wonky or that just sounds weird, then just let's say this one sounds wonky. Let's say it did, right? It sounds fine. But then if this breath sounded weird, which they sometimes do, then I can just go and delete it and then literally copy and paste a breath from another place in the vocal, because a breath is a breath. It doesn't matter, right? You can easily put them at the places where you want them. Now, another point I'll make about the breaths is, as I mentioned previously, you absolutely want the breaths to still remain in the song. You don't want a breathless song. Well, you do want your song to be breathless, but not like that. You want it to feel like a real vocal, right? You don't want to chop off all the breaths. But what I do like to do, because once we fully mix this vocal in the mixing phase, we're going to add compression, right? We're going to add saturation, we're going to add distortion. And sometimes those effects can bring those breaths a little bit too loud to where they're almost at the same volume as the rest of the vocal, which isn't necessarily what you want most of the time. So one of the great things you can do is just do a fade in. So as you're going through this process of getting rid of the gaps and everything in between, is whenever there's a breath or when the next line starts, just fade it in. See, that way the breath isn't as loud. So you can come over here and it's not as loud. It's still there. It's just not as obvious. And another point real quick is, even though that I'm just running this through JJP vocals, right, and a bit of auto-tune, which we don't even need to have that. I just used that for the last video. The reason that we're doing this again is because the JJP plugin adds some compression. So that's not what I'm going to use in the final mix. I'm going to run it through my own processing. But this helps get us close to what it's actually going to sound like in the mix, which is very important. Because if I turned everything off and just had it dry, it's harder to make these decisions.
There's a wound in my mind,
right?
Is that her car?
Because it doesn't sound anything like it's going to sound in the final mix. Because I add a bunch of reverb and things like that to this vocal. So that can be helpful to have some effects on it like so. And that's basically it. You just want to go through your vocal take that you've comped down and make these cuts. Get rid of all the space, fade in, fade out, fade in the breaths, and pay attention for any wonky breaths, any lip smacks, things like that that can just add a sense of amateurism to your track that you don't want. So you want to eliminate those distractions. All right, let's move on to the next step.